You're listening to Second Cut. This is the podcast from the filmmagazine.com where we talk about topics in film theory, history, criticism, society, whatever else I say here. I'm Jacob, and I'm the one who did not contribute to the Film4 list.
Boo. I'm Sam, and I did a fair amount on the list, and thought I would cover a film from it that's just filmed down the road from me.
I'm Kieran. I'm the one that, even if he did or didn't contribute to it, can't remember.
You did some, didn't you? You did,
I actually don't think I did, because I looked and went, if nobody's got the time, I'll jump in, but I have a lot of work on my plate. Anyway,
okay.
we are talking.
What?
Film 4.
My film was not filmed down the road from me, but closer to me than most of the films, I'm sure.
Set in Texas. Partially.
Yeah.
Partially.
Yeah, I think mine's literally 8 miles from where I am now.
Yeah. We've all picked some film to discuss today with some kind of geographical relation. I've got a lead actor from Wales.
Kieran has a dad.
Yeah. Sam's filmed 8 miles from him, and Jacob, was yours wasn't filmed in Texas, but I guess it was.
Parts of it were, but it's filmed in the part that looks nothing like where I live. And then when it shows a picture of Paris, that's not a picture of Paris. That's not what Paris looks like.
I was gonna say Texas is literally the size of the UK. So,
where is the picture of Paris? Like, where do they take the pictures? You know,
it looks like they took a picture of the deserty parts that they were in when they were shooting it. Like,
it's probably the Eiffel Tower from Vegas, you know.
My parents lived in Fort Stockton, where they shot part of it a few years after this was made. So, basically, the only place in Texas this takes place is the South and West, which is pretty deserty. Other than like the Rio Grande River Valley is pretty, but it's a very diverse state. It's not all desert. Don't watch this movie and think that's what Texas looks like.
At least they did actually film part of it in Texas. You know, they got somewhere close. They didn't do like a American Wealth in London and go, yep, it's all set on the Yorkshire Moors where we're going to film it, Brecon Beacons in Wales.
That's probably more offensive to you than this is to me.
I mean, I suppose at least that they've both got moorland, haven't they? You know?
Yeah. Jacob, it'd be the equivalent of going, okay, let's set a film in Texas. Shall we film in Texas now? Where shall we shoot it? Nevada.
Oklahoma.
Maine.
Which is actually what they did for Bonnie and Clyde. So, boo.
There you go.
But yeah, we're talking about Film 4. If you go to the film magazine right now, we have 100 unmissable Film 4 movies written by team. As Sam and Kieran and I alluded to, everybody contributed in some form or fashion. Whether it was
cheerleading from the side.
Yeah, cheerleading from the sidelines is still a contribution.
Said I'm going to do it and then didn't. But yeah,
me and Jacob did some other stuff to take the pressure off the guys who were doing the list.
Yeah, I watched Megalopolis, so you didn't have to, Sam. But yeah, it says down here, the contributors were Katie Doyle, Martha Lane, Margaret Rorty, Sam Sewell Peterson, George Taylor, and Joseph Wade. So shout out to all of them. Kieran, you did not.
No, that's literally everybody on the team except me, you, and Mark, pretty much.
But yeah, you can go read that list right now, and we'll give a little bit of an introduction here. I went to mediaborn with an e.co.uk, where they have a very nice intro to what Film 4 is, and basically, I mean, you guys know this. Channel 4 is a channel in the UK. It
was the fourth channel to appear in the UK, funnily enough.
What channel is the BBC?
Number 1.
So, yes, you had BBC 1, BBC 2, then ITV, which was Channel 3, and then in the early 80s, Channel 4 came around.
Back in the days where you only had a couple of channels and you could find something to watch, and now we have 20 streaming services where everything is right at your fingertips, and we still can't decide what to watch, and we'll watch the same film we've seen for the past 5 times. You know.
Yeah, so Film 4 was founded in 1982 after David Rose left the BBC. They had a starting budget of £6 million. So
I don't know what the equivalent is. Do you want me to try and do an inflation?
Yeah, I'm sure it was a lot of money for a publicly owned media station in the 80s. I mean, so pretty much what I learned is that there was this holdback system in the UK. So this is a TV station that wants to make film for movie theaters, but they were not allowed to exhibit them on TV because of the holdback system. Films that went to theaters had to be held back for 3 years before broadcast on television. So like you could go rent the video, I guess, since video was taking over in the 80s, but you had to wait 3 years, like I said.
I think I remember that from the 90s. Really, I think that's been my kind of living memory. I remember it took a long time, as you say, years before they actually hit TV, and you were probably looking at like a VHS release, like maybe a year afterwards, if you're lucky. But
it was kind of even the quick blockbusters. It was kind of, it would be out in the cinemas, then about 6 months after it had left the cinemas, you'd get it on video, and then DVD when it came around. And then by sort of 12 months, maybe after the film had been out in cinemas, normally around Christmas, it would hit the stuff when everyone's sitting down in front of the TV and they'd re-show the blockbusters. Normally, that's how Harry Potter and that always got the endless repeats that will come up, which I'm surprised haven't started showing yet. BBC are just like, we'll show Disney and Harry Potter, and we know we will get people watching around Christmas, and that's about it.
Yeah, when my dad was growing up here in the 60s, like that was Westerns. They were always on TV. He saw so many that way.
TCM still do it on occasion. You click in the middle of the day and there's a good chance that it'll be some black and white Western from the 50s and 60s with John Wayne or Audie Murphy or somebody in it, Gregory Peck on occasion. They still do it.
Yeah, and so basically Channel 4 came to an agreement with the Cinema Exhibitors Association that would allow independent films made under a price point of £1.25 million to be shown on TV. And so Channel 4, they started making deals with prominent UK film and video production companies. By 1984, they were investing in a third of all feature films made in the UK, and throughout the 80s, they produced over 140 films just in the 80s. So,
they're kind of a big deal over here.
Yeah, and in the inflation calculator, £6 million back then is just under 21 mil today. So that's still pretty much nothing. People get sued for more than that very easily to start an entire stream service, and that is ridiculous. So yeah, it started as Channel 4, and then the film production company and distribution side would be Film4 as a result.
Yeah,
if you go onto like Film4's kind of website now, their kind of mission statement is so Film4 develops and co-finances films and is known for working with the most distinctive and innovative talents in the UK and international filmmaking, both new and established. So their commitment, to just keeping independent kind of filmmaking going, I suppose.
Yeah, and it quite a lot of it. It's not always the case, but quite a lot of it is on the British side. So they are normally the ones that will team up with people like BFI, BBC Films, Film Cymru, more regional stuff as well. So if you've got a film that's going to have what's that? Yorkshire, the Scottish Film Club, the Irish lot. So if you've got a film, even like the genre stuff, that's going to be sort of a couple of people, not as many special effects, you can probably get it for like 2-3 mil, even with a budget for a kind of main actor or actress in there that's fairly well known. They are normally the ones that will put in a decent chunk of the money.
And I think they also stand in huge contrast to the Hollywood of the 80s, which was all about making commercial crap and pumping it out for as much money as possible in every media outlet possible. So
well, I mean, if you think about it, they're kind of the opposite, but they know they're going to get the money back. Because if you've got a while to wait before films are shown on TV, then if you go, we've got a brand new film now being shown on TV, then you're going to get the eyeballs on it. When there's only a few channels left, or to watch in the first place, you are going to get the hits just automatically. I mean, there are some that will automatically put it on. I mean, Steven Spielberg was doing movies of the week for Universal in the 70s. That's how Duel got made. His first feature, it was a movie of the week. But if you're doing you only have to put a certain amount of money in to get an independent film finance if you're going to get the rating, because there's 4 channels and you've got a brand new film on there where everyone else is having to wait 3 years to get one. Even if it's a smaller budget, you're going to get it based on the ad revenue, essentially. So it actually makes an awful lot of financial sense for them.
And Channel 4 as a venture runs on ads. I mean, it's not the BBC. They're both public service broadcasters, but BBC has a license fee that we all everyone who owns a TV in this country pays for. Whereas Channel 4, it's all the commercials. And
it's not even if you own a TV; it's if you own an aerial. If your home can receive a TV signal, you pay the TV license.
Yeah, well, unless you can prove that it's never been used, which is a bit of a challenge.
Yeah. And of course, some of their films we're not talking about today: 12 Years a Slave, 127 Hours, Ex Machina, Train Spotting. I mean, Last Night in Soho. There are so many movies that they have been behind that are freaking awesome.
More recently, Poor Things, Zone of Interest.
Yeah, one of my personal favorites. I'll give a shout out for The Double that came out in 2020.
The Rich Daiwadi film.
With Jesse Eisenberg against himself.
It's amazing that.
Four Weddings and a Funeral, starring Andy McDowell. Obviously, I've now worked with Andy McDowell, so I've got a thing for that. High Rise, the Ben Wheatley, J.G. Ballard adaptation. Howard's End with Anthony Hopkins. It was kind of almost a companion piece to Age of Innocence. It was kind of around the same time, that kind of thing.
The Michael Fassbender Macbeth.
Yep. Which is a beautifully gorgeous movie. It really is. It's just a really well shot movie. There's hundreds of films. Saint Maud.
They did Sexy Beast.
Shaun of the Dead. Shallow Grave. Slumdog Millionaire. Which won Best Picture. So.
I mean, it's amazing the support they've how they've made making a lot of these films possible, especially for upcoming exciting filmmakers, from various kind of backgrounds, and a lot of women directors actually, Julia Ducournau, and Titan, and as you mentioned, St. Maud of Rose Glass. You had Rebecca Hall's debut film Passing, which was co-produced with Netflix. So,
Andrea Arnold's Wuthering Heights.
Yeah.
Plug. We did that.
Yeah. The sweary Heathcliff film.
Ooh.
Yeah. And again, you said Last Night in Soho. You get Edgar Wright, who is one of the biggest British directors working currently, and is realistically, you'd kind of almost assume a box office hit, even though he hasn't done that many films. But he's, after 6 films in, is still going back to Film 4 to get his weird kind of English giallo film kind of greenlit and stuff like that. So they really do pump out a lot of stuff, and it kind of goes under the radar. You do watch some stuff, and then occasionally you'll see it go, oh, look, it's Film 4. They're one of those kind of things, and then you kind of think they're just a little guy that occasionally will chuck stuff in, but the amount of massive is ridiculous.
I don't know about you, Kieran, but I can get a little kind of thrill of excitement. I hear that jingle, like when you sit down, and you don't know it's a Film 4 film, and they hear the
and you see the graphics kind of come down to the little box that they have now. It's really nice. And it is also good to see that it's not just because some of the smaller production companies will go mostly for dramas. You know what I mean? Because they're smaller, so they're not going to go into a genre fair or anything like that, because that requires money. These guys will do pretty much anything: comedy, horror, science fiction. Titan, they'll do a field. They did a field in England, but then they'll do art house, little tiny things. They'll do costume dramas, the lot. I mean, 60-70% of it is going to be have a British slant or a British filmmaker or something like that. But they obviously, even with Paris, Texas, they have gone further afield. Further afield in England.
And as a public service broadcaster as well, they're subject to again, the same in theory, like the same kind of Channel 4 obviously, but it stretches to Film4. The subjects the same kind of ideals that the BBC have, in terms of what they produce. It needs to demonstrate innovation, experiment, and experimentation and creativity in the form and contents of its programs. It needs to appeal to the tastes and interests of culturally diverse society. It needs to make a significant contribution to meeting the need for the licensed public service channels, to include programs of an educational nature and educative value, and it needs to exhibit a distinctive character. So, it's there are some high-minded ideals there. I think there's they're not just churning out any old rubbish just to just to keep afloat. I think there's a bit more to it than that.
Yeah, the original idea was essentially to make him cheap, to make a profit off the ad revenue from the TV, but they're also not doing a Blumhouse and just throwing stuff at a screen and knowing that 90% of it is awful, but we'll make the money.
I think if anything, they're getting more daring creative over time. You can't the last 5 years especially. They're really not sitting on their laurels.
I think now, over the years, they've managed to get the kind of kudos that allows them to throw out a weird one or two. It's like they're not big enough that they have to rely on they rely on blockbusters essentially, but they're not small enough that they essentially can't take a risk. Because you get the small ones where it's like they'll either a massive risk because they have nothing to lose, or there's no risk at all because they need to make the money back. And Film4 managed to get themselves into the position where they can almost have the best of both worlds, where you can get the big names in and play a little bit of a risk, but it's going to be a lower budget project, so you've not got that much financial risk on the same side. So they're in a very nice position. You almost don't want to see them get much bigger. You don't want to see them do like a $40-50 million blockbuster, because that would kind of go against their ethos.
Yeah. And when you're scrolling through their film list, you see all of the different co-productions with different people. So while they have a lot of like ones they did alone, like you'll have ones with the Scottish Film Institute or the British Film Institute, Fox Searchlight, all kinds of different people and places for financing. So I guess they're getting a bit creative as well.
Yeah, and it's not, again, it's normally smaller productions as well that are, and it's quite a lot of the time it's BFI or BBC, but they will go for again, like Screen Yorkshire or UK Film Council or
Pathé.
National Lottery put some money in. Yeah, even Pathé or Canal Plus are smaller.
Is that how they say? Do they say Canal Plus?
It's something like that. The Irish Film Board as well. Obviously, even these things, massive national film companies are tiny compared to just like a tenth of Warner Brothers.
I like that Samuel Golden found his own company separate from MGM.
Yep.
All right. I guess we should get into the movies now. So,
we should.
I think mine's first, right? Yeah. Y'all chose modern ones, very 21st century.
Yep.
Yes, we did.
So I picked one from their not Inception, but from around there. Released 1984, Paris, Texas, directed by Wim Wenders.
Wim Wenders.
Sorry, Wim Wenders. My bad.
He's a German man.
Yep. It was a West German French production. I don't actually know how Film4 came into this, because they're not listed as a production or distribution company on the Wikipedia. So
I'm guessing there will have been some kind of financial putting
they're
in
the mix somewhere.
Yes, but yeah, it's obviously living up to the creed that Sam was talking about, where they want to release things that are higher minded, more artistic, because that's definitely what it's going. It's a road movie. Some places say neo-western. I don't know if I'd go that far, but it is definitely a road movie. but it's about, sort of identity and reforming your family. What I was taking away from it is there's very much a dissolution of the nuclear family sort of thing going on in the story. But Sam, you wrote the entry for the list that we have.
I did.
Yes. Short and sweet, but I'm going to steal it. An apparently mute man named Travis, a mesmerizing Harry Dean Stanton, estranged from his family for half a decade, wanders out of the Texas desert to reconnect with his wife and son. And I went into it really expecting more of that, but he kind of gets to L.A. pretty quick.
Yeah.
He's wandering around Texas. He's found by his brother, and he's like, okay, we're going to go back to L.A. I thought that was going to be the movie. And instead, they get back to L.A. They watch family films. He's dissociated. Like, they say he's amnesiac or something, but, like, he clearly does remember at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, spoilers for this old art movie.
Yeah, I mean, he'll only open up to the extent that he does when he's good and ready to. He's taking his sweet time about it.
And to be honest, I think that's one of the good things, that they doesn't actually really tell you what happened. And I think if you do, you kind of lose something, and it's because that's not the point.
Yeah.
It uses the whole memory loss as a jumping off point for the rest of the story, rather than it being about that.
It's definitely not like a film that's particularly interested in the plot at all. Really, it's just kind of a slow burn of like an intense kind of character piece.
It's an emotional plot. It's very sad. Like, the whole thing was a bummer. Which I don't know what I was expecting, but because
I was going to say, we've all picked films that aren't exactly cheery.
They're all a bit miserable, aren't they? Yeah.
I was going to say, we're in October, and they're not exactly horror films, but
yeah. I mean, I describe it as quite poetic and everything, in kind of the performances, the visuals, the music, and just the pace, the whole thing. It really just makes you kind of ruminate on like the ideas that it's exploring, and. It goes at its own pace. It just kind of washes over you.
Yeah. I was gonna say, if you're wanting something that moves along at pace, this is not the film for you. It goes, do I need 15 minutes on a conversation on one side of it? Yes. It's like it's almost French in its level of weird pacing of we just take our time with this story,
Yeah. I mean,
that's the Paris part.
Yeah. Wim Wenders kind of West German films. They're all kind of this kind of measured. This kind of he's not a hurry. He's kind of a filmmaker, and he's just brings those sensibilities over stateside.
Well, and so, in Breathless, where they have like 20 minutes of just a conversation in bed. It's literally that kind of pacing.
Yeah, but sort of. What I was hoping for was more of that with just the brother and Harry Dean Stanton. But yeah, they get back, and he's like reconnecting with his traumatized son, which was kind of sweet. I liked them having walkie-talkies, but then the scene at the bank happens, and I'm like, oh man, I mean, this guy's just abandoning his kid at a bank again. He falls asleep on the lookout for his wife. But that's another thing that stands out, is like, It seems like this is a story about, by the end, an abusive guy stalking his ex-wife, which colors the view of the story a little bit. I'm sure this was much sweeter before people really thought about the context of, lovers who have departed.
Yeah, but then you have the iconic scene towards the end. The one side of the mirrored glass. And he's basically, that's the point where he's really opening up. He's kind of becomes human again and opens up completely and pours his heart out. And I forgive him. She might be struggling a bit, but basically, I was a bad dude. I made some horrible mistakes. But,
she doesn't seem like she's struggling, though. She seems very eager to forgive this man over twice her age, who abused her and had a kid with her. But yeah, that part's shot beautifully. I love the blue light matches with her outfit. I also want to know, like, who developed the a woman sits in like a Fantasyland booth before the cam girl show was like a thing. Who developed the proto cam girl experience?
Only ever seems to crop up in horror movies, really.
Like Pam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think like, 'cause it's in like a few like giallo films as well, isn't it? That kind of setup.
The sleazier side, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely got a lot of the giallo lighting going, which I'm a sucker for. It's neon road film.
Yeah.
But
it goes nowhere near Vegas. But.
Yeah. It does get the aesthetic though, just desert everywhere.
I was going to say it's a very nice looking film.
Now, it's interesting to me seeing like a European make a movie about a place called Paris, Texas, where Paris is not in it at all, and it represents this like idealized place that like when we hear Paris, we think of like that happens in the movie. He says Paris. He's like, oh, we're not going to France or something like that. Like there's something there in like the sort of misremembered or mistaken, I don't know, something. But it's interesting. I'm not sure it's a movie I'm gonna watch again though, just because it was such a bummer. Like there are some bummer movies that I don't want to go back to, even if I loved them.
Yeah, I mean, I love it as a movie, but I can probably only really watch it every 5 years or so max. You know, I think I've seen it probably 4 times in my life. But yeah, you got to leave some space between those viewings, I think, because it will affect your mood for weeks afterwards.
I can't rewatch Uncut Gems. I can't bring myself to do it as much as I loved it.
Like I did in my second year of my undergrad. One of my essays was on the asylum hospital scene from Jacob's Ladder, and my intention was to watch the film a couple of times over to really do it because I'd seen it before, and then I rewatch it again for this assignment. I'm like, I'm not going to rewatch this in a hurry because it's really depressing. You know, there are some films where you're like, this is great cinema, but I'm going to leave it for a while. Because I have a life, and I would like to live it happily.
Yeah. I mean, this is like an intense experience, you know. It's like emotionally raw and everything. But I suppose it's not all doom and gloom by the end. You know, there is something. It's like a bittersweet kind of note to end on.
But it's the scenes like waiting for his son to walk him home, and then he gets in somebody else's car. Like that's a bummer. It hurts. You know. There's also the scene where the brother-in-law or brother is taking down the Pepsi ad, and then I went and saw The Substance like the next day. So billboards, you know, very popular theme in movies I'm watching lately.
That's just The Substance as well kicking in.
Yeah, but I mean, look, it's a good movie. If you don't like slow-paced stuff, don't watch it.
This is not going to be the one that wins you over.
No. If you want to watch a slow art film, I probably have 10 others that I would recommend over this, to be honest.
One of them, The Substance.
I mean, I think if you're in love with like lots and lots of like flowery dialogue, again, this isn't one for you. It's like, apart from like Travis's kind of monologue towards the end, you know, there's not many characters saying more than like a few kind of short phrases at a time.
It's very simple, and that's fine because you know I guess the music is really, and that it takes place in Texas and California makes it Western, I guess, but
it's almost more. It's almost more of just like a mood piece rather than. And I know there is a narrative, but almost the narrative is not the point. I
get that. Yeah, I mean, my parents had a word with me about you know, after they'd seen after they've read my little you know couple of paragraphs on it on the list, and they really love the soundtrack. You know, they've got it on CD, and they're playing it all the time as I was growing up, and I'd obviously forgotten that. And they said, I can't believe you didn't specifically mention the soundtrack in your little write-ups. Like, I mentioned other things. It's just not one of the first things that comes to mind with I think of the visuals before the soundtrack. Like, oh, you're wrong. It's beautiful.
Sam, I don't know how to feel that your parents played that for you a lot. Well, what are they trying to say?
It was on in the background, just when certain soundtracks, I think, just were played on a loop as I was growing up. That's a
Look,
lot of Morricone stuff, I seem to remember.
look, I have to say, up north of England can at times get quite drizzly and bleak and,
Yeah.
things like that. So the soundtrack to a film, which is also similarly quite dreary and bleak, there's probably some similarities and crossovers there. I'm not making any stereotypes, but
Yeah.
Yeah, and they found beautiful vistas to shoot in. Very nice locations. Yeah,
that weren't within the 30-mile radius of Hollywood.
Right. They very well could have been. Because
you do know about that.
None
don't
of them
you, right?
look like Paris, Texas. I will say that much, because
You
Paris is in the beautiful Piney Hill area of Texas. Lots of trees.
Yeah, and it has a current population of 24,000. It's a city with 24,000 people in it. And I'm just going, what?
Wow.
How do you
They
do
probably
that?
have a Whataburger and a Chicken Express.
My university town is bigger than that when it's got the students in. Like, what's going on?
My city, which isn't one of the biggest in the UK, is twice that size.
Yeah, it's...
See, in Texas, that's the size of like a growing town. That's where everybody's going right now. They're probably adding a couple more high schools as everybody escapes the rising costs of cities to live in the idyllic place where their parents conceived them. So
Come on, you need to do a China and just build a city for about 10 million people in about 5 years before anybody moves there, and then just force everyone into there. This is obviously the way it needs to be done.
no, that's not how Texas thinks about things.
No.
We're more
I
of
thought
a
everything was
do
it's
it as it
weird
happens.
Yeah, Paris is so small, and yet everything is bigger in Texas. But
Yeah.
Also, our Eiffel Tower has a cowboy hat, so
So it's better.
yeah,
it is there.
the original
say
has a
that.
beret at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
It's a good film, but it's one of those ones that it's not like one that I think you're immediately going to go, oh my god, this is such an amazing movie, because you kind of need time to process it.
Well,
I mean, I do love it, but like I say, I can't watch it very often. I've got to kind of psych myself up for it.
Yeah.
if we're going to bring it, and compare it to something like Breathless has the weird editing and stuff that really like gets me going, whereas like this is kind of slow paced, and it's not it's not the same for me artistically. Yeah,
it's a mood and a feel rather than
and it executes that wonderfully. Like,
oh yeah,
this won Palme d'Or for a reason. It's a great movie, but yeah. My expectations differed from what it actually was, and then also it was a bummer. So
doesn't help.
I should have watched Last Night in Soho instead.
Well, that's a bummer as well.
It is, but it's an exciting bummer.
It's a cathartic bummer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, from one bummer to another, Sam.
Yes.
You want to talk about The Selfish Giant?
Yeah, so let's leap forward 3 decades, shall we, to 2013. So this is Kyle Barnard's social realist kind of fable movie. That's how I describe it. Fun fact: I very nearly met the director in person. I was at the regional premiere of her last film, Ali and Ava. So I saw her giving an introduction, and she was hanging around at the bar just beforehand. Waiting to go in, and I saw her. I recognised that. I was too scared to go up and say hello. It's like, I'm never going to be able to meet any directors or actors I admire, because I'm just too scared to just make myself known to them. I'm sure she was lovely, but yeah, so I didn't actually speak to her, but I watched her give a nice introduction. So this is, I kind of describe this as like an amalgamation of Oliver Twist and Stand By Me, but in Bradford.
Yeah, with a Ken Loach vibe.
Yeah.
Please, sir, can I have some more dead body?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely got that kind of thing about like putting yourself kind of in the shoes of like people less well off, for you, and then kind of thinking about kind of how kind of lucky and privileged you are, I suppose, but with kind of like an emotional honesty and kind of naturalistic kind of performances. I mean, the two the two leads, two young actors playing Arbor and Swifty. They were non-professional actors at the time, and they're just. I don't think you could fake that kind of natural chemistry of just literally two kids, that the director saw on the street and thought they looked interesting and kind of said, "Oh yeah, well, do you want to be in a film?" and they just kind of just left them to it basically. Connor Chapman, who plays Arbor, he's not acted since this, so obviously wasn't bitten by the acting bug. But Sean Thomas is a fairly big actor now. He's gone to better things. He was in How to Have Sex last year, so he is still kind of cropping up as in quite a few films since this. So he's obviously enjoys himself. Yeah, these two kids, they spend their day skipping school and then collecting scrap metal to sell on, and they end up falling in with this shady scrap dealer called Kitten, and who basically manipulates and exploits them, and but he also gets Swifty involved in his illegal horse and cart races, which kind of quite lucrative in terms of betting on these races. And Arbor as his friends not around as much, basically just kind of retreats in on himself and just puts himself at more and more risk, and it ends up with quite a tragic kind of circumstance towards the end. There is a very upsetting and sudden demise. I don't know, should I spoil it?
Yes.
We will leave that up to you.
It's over 10 years old, but yeah, there's they don't get out of it unscathed. Let's put it that way.
By the way, Sam, I see that she made a documentary called The Arbor. Is this character's name related to that?
Yes. So the character named after the area that documentary was about. So The Arbor is a docudrama about a poet from Bradford called Andrea Dunbar, and she lived in the Arbor, which is an area of Buttershaw, which is like a quite impoverished kind of area of the city. It's one of these areas where a lot of people middle class people like myself would say, "Oh, I'm not sure if I want to go there after night," but the people live there. They're very kind of supportive kind of a community, and look after each other and everything. But yeah, so that was about that poet's kind of life and kind of how she broke through and kind of got her work seen outside of Yorkshire. And the kid is named after, in tribute to that.
Yeah. Quick note to Jacob on how the UK works, especially England. Okay, the further north away from London you get, the less money they get. And that's just the basic rule. And by the time you get sort of anywhere near the top, everyone's got about a fifth of the amount of money you probably get down London.
So Scotland's really poor. Okay.
Well, Scotland's its own country. Scotland.
Scotland's got devolved governments. They've got a bit more say about where their money goes. So they can distribute it a bit better than we can. I mean, our local government basically is on its knees just after years, as a lot of councils are across England, on knees after just years and years of cuts at central government level, basically.
Essentially.
So it's like our South.
Kind of, yeah. Essentially, how it works is it'll go, oh, we're going to put in 10 new train stations near London, and we're going to close down 5 up north.
Oh, jeez. No, but that sounds like the U.S., just geographically reversed.
The further you get from the capital, the less money they get.
Yeah, I mean, the way Kaya Barnard works as a director, so I think she's done something with all of her films to press. They've all been set, if not in Bradford itself, in the area around it. They've all been set in this part of Yorkshire, basically, and she just spends time with the communities and kind of sees if there's any non-professionals interested in breaking into acting. Occasionally, she might have a few kind of bigger names padding out the cast as well.
Because Ralph Ineson's in this, isn't he?
You had Claire Rushbrook. Who was in a lot Mike Leigh films. She was in her most recent film, Ali and Ava. You had Ruth Wilson in Dark River. But basically, she spends a lot of time with these communities and slowly develops her scripts, and kind of works with kind of workshops and gradually develop their characters. So it's a lot like how Mike Leigh does his films as well, really. what I like the most about this, though, apart from like the the honesty of kind of portraying kind of working class people in Bradford, is the I mean, there's sort of like a fable kind of aspect to it. It kind of almost seems like you kind of lessons are being learned, and it's almost tragic and ironic, kind of how things go. But she kind of takes time, kind of show us some kind of, I call it like bleak, beautiful imagery. Like a lot of the settings, it's like you think like these kind of urban, suburban areas, kind of like, quite poor, impoverished areas as well. With like a lot of trash around, and like just crap piled up on sides of the roads and stuff like that. The size of motorways. But you catch those kind of areas like in the right lights on, like first thing in the morning with like the mist still kind of in the sky, and there's something about that. It looks kind of quite striking. Even so, I mean, there's a great social media account that I follow. They're on Twitter. They're probably on Instagram as well, as called the Grim Art Group. Basically, people just like post like kind of all these kind of industrial settings, but kind of photographed in interesting ways, or like people do paintings based on like supposedly like grim, kind of depressing areas, but find some kind of inner beauty in that. And one of the more striking images of this is featuring some cooling towers, like a power station cooling tower on the side of a motorway. And that was an iconic landmark in Yorkshire for years. I think it's Yorkshire into Derbyshire, I think. It's sort of like the county border, but it's like on the side of the motorway. And for years, just traveling down that road, you saw that as you went past, and it was like an iconic landmark. And then they knocked it down, got rid of the landmark, so that power station was closed. But that it's in that image, kind of in a certain light, shrouds in mist. I think it's quite beautiful.
Yeah, there's a similar thing. The film Nuclear was a lot of it filmed in Wales by one of the old nuclear power stations, which I cannot remember the name of now, but it's still there. So every time I'd go up north to visit, we've got family up in North Wales who passed that power station. So I kind of looked at it and went, oh my God, it's that power station. It's kind of one of those things where if you go on that road enough, the site of the big chimney stack there. Some stuff does that to you, it's just part of the landscape, and then it's up to other people to bring it in a strange and interesting way.
Yeah, in terms of like kind of this kind of being very authentic and stuff, like the cultural touchstones it kind of goes into. I mean, I think she clearly kind of spent time, with these people and got to know kind of what makes them tick, what's important in their lives and stuff. One of the more, because how Swifty kind of gets involved in these horse and cart races, that's quite a common sight in some areas of Bradford, especially like the kind of the gypsy traveller kind of community, kind of on the on roads, in the horse and carts, going around, and gathering up stuff, to make use of. I mean, I don't think she looks by any means she looks down on any of these kind of communities. I think it's like this kind of a different kind of what, because she's quite middle class, as Kylie Barlow. She's from a nicer area of Yorkshire, put it mildly, but she obviously kind of feels connection to people from other backgrounds, and generally wants to kind of spend time with them and to kind of tell their story in like an honest way, which I think is quite admirable, and what makes her work kind of quite interesting. I mean, I do hope she's one of these filmmakers. I do hope she kind of stays true to herself and she's not tempted away by, Hollywood. Hollywood. I mean,
I don't think Marvel are in the nicest way going to. This is who we want to finally direct Blade.
But,
I mean, her biggest thing so far is the TV series she did last year with Tom Hiddleston. She did was it The Serpent?
Okay, vaguely, yeah.
See, I want her to make Woolopolis. I see that is a nickname for Bradford.
It is, yeah, because in the Industrial Revolution, that's how we made our money. Yeah, we were famed for the wool capital of Yorkshire. Yeah.
If you make Megalopolis, but it's all sheep.
Yeah, I mean, coming up next year, Bradford is the city of culture, the UK city of culture, which is past.
What does that mean?
So every few years, a city is designated city of culture, gets a load of money from charity, from central government to basically put on arts and culture events and kind of celebrate their heritage and stuff like that. So
Gentrified Buttershaw. Got it.
kind of, I mean, yeah. Hopefully, not too much gentrification be going on, but hopefully it'll be. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm sure I've read that Claire Barnard's involved in some regard, and she'll be putting on, like, she'll be handling like the film programming aspect of that. So hopefully there'll be some good kind of film events going on. I mean, we've got the National Media Museum, where where film festivals are hosted. So and we've got that kind of history of film as well. I mean, Bradford it's contributes quite a bit. So you forget how much has actually been filmed up here. From.
Yeah.
Monty Python's Meaning of Life. They came up here. A private function. The King's Speech. The scene in the sports stadium. That's filmed in a sports stadium, not far from where this film was set, actually. So. But yeah, it's I think it's a really special film, and obviously it hits kind of home for me because it's set in my home. But
yeah.
But yeah, I think it's got a lot to admire about it, and I think that kind of it moves me, and it's it's got a lot going on below the surface. I think without being too kind of deliberately kind of kitchen sink bleak. It's kind of there's hope here. Not much, but a little bit of hope. But by the end,
A little bit of hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly a raw film, if nothing else.
Yeah. And I guess we should mention the Film4 film Rita Sue and Bob 2 also filmed there in Buttershaw.
Yeah. That's true, and that is another Andrea Dunbar play that was based on. So yeah, she's. Basically, yeah, she's an icon of kind of Bradford culture, and I think most people, who grew up here or do things about living in this area, a lot to us. So yeah.
If you saw her in like a pub or something, would you run away?
Probably, if she wasn't dead.
Okay. Oh, okay. R.I.P.
Yeah.
Maybe you would since she's dead.
I think she famously knew how to handle herself and didn't suffer fools. I think she scared off quite a lot of when she started making it big. I think she scared off quite a lot of London kind of culture critics who came up to Bradford to kind of meet her and interview her. I think they were a bit stunned by their meeting.
Nice.
You got to have some women to put the fear of God into some people. That's how it works.
Yeah,
all right. Well, Sam discussed the fatherland for him. Kieran, what are you discussing?
Yeah. I'm discussing people getting very upset that Chadwick Boseman didn't win an Oscar posthumously.
What was he nominated for again?
Is Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, I want to say.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, so
I just completely that was all gone from my mind. I just remembered that Anthony Hopkins won.
Yeah, it wasn't for Black Panther. Yeah, so anyone that has a little bit of amnesia from the past few years, and I mean, this one was just after COVID, which is why he wasn't there to collect it, because he thought, I'm in my 80s now, probably shouldn't be leaving too much,
This was when he was getting really big on social media, wasn't he?
Just for going to a camera and
just posting silly videos and pulling faces.
Kieran,
pulling faces. And
please keep doing his accent.
No, I won't. That would be very bad.
Your Jimmy Stewart's better.
I know. I haven't done an Anthony Hopkins very often. I might at some point slip into Electra if we ever do Silence of the Lambs, but. Well, it's better that than Clarice.
Hello, Clarice.
No, he doesn't say hello, Clarice.
I know.
He says good morning. But yeah, so anyone that's got collective amnesia from a couple of years ago, 2021, the Oscars decided, you know what we're going to do? Chadwick Boseman's now everybody's favorite superhero ever because he's not white. So he's nominated for an Oscar for not a superhero film, and he died recently. So we're going to put that category at the end on the off chance that there's 20% chance he'll win by the numbers. And then he didn't win, and everyone was in a massive outrage because they thought it was unacceptable that somebody else should get an award for something they thought that somebody else should get. How dare they? Unfortunately, Anthony Hopkins won it for The Father, and when you're 83, and you've done what Anthony Hopkins has, everyone's like, yeah, if anyone else is going to get it, we can't really say anything about Hopkins getting it. Like, we'll let him off the hook.
You can't disagree with Anthony Hopkins winning an award. Unfortunately,
it's one of those things where it was like, again, if it was, it's the equivalent of like Meryl Streep getting an Oscar for something. You're just like, yeah, but it's Meryl Streep. We're not going to say much against that, Like it's just one of those. And he won it for a film called The Father, which got a couple of other noms as well. What other noms did it get? It got Best Picture. It got Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor for Olivia Colman.
Best Adapted Screenplay.
Best Adapted Screenplay. It won. Florian Zeller won it for adapting his own play,
which doesn't always work.
Doesn't always work, but he got it for his own play. And Christopher Hampton, Best Film Editing for Yorgos Lamprinos, and Best Production Design for Peter Francis and Kathy Featherstone.
By the way, for Lamprinos, his only other credit I found was The Sun. The follow-up.
Which was the follow-up to this.
There was a sequel?
Yes.
It was a thematic sequel, not a literal plot sequel.
I was going to say, like, what did I miss that?
It was not as well received, it appears.
No, it wouldn't be. Like how? What do they think? Anyway, Anthony Hopkins essentially is an 80-odd-year-old guy. I think he was a former engineer, they say, and he's living in a little flat. I'm guessing it's meant to be in London. It never actually says. It's just a city of some kind. It could be Swansea for all anyone knows. It makes no difference. If you're nearer to Port Talbot for Anthony Hopkins, which is where he's from, and his daughter comes in and sees to him, and yes, all these things. Has somebody seen my watch? We're gonna have to get rid of my housekeeper. She's stolen my watch. And it's like, have you checked your hiding place? It's like, well, I know I haven't. It's not there. And goes, check the hiding place, and the watch is there, so it's a little bit off. And then somebody else comes in. It's like, who's this? This is Paul. This is my husband. We've been married for 10 years. And then 10 minutes later, somebody else walks in who says he's also Paul, and then they haven't been married. And then somebody else walks in that's not the daughter, but is the daughter, and it's just been out, and he starts wondering what the hell's going on, and people are doing things, and you soon kind of, it's quite clever because it starts it off almost like a thriller. So it starts off so that it's like there's an older guy who's obviously got a few memory issues, but then he almost plays it like a thriller, like there's a conspiracy going on. Yeah. But then you do realize eventually, you never know who is who, and that's kind of the point, is that somebody is just suffering from dementia and losing it, and you are almost seeing it through their viewpoint, and it all kind of culminates in a final scene, which is essentially what he got the Oscar for all the film. But it's really the final scene of him, spoiler not spoiler, in a care home, a nursing home, wakes up there just the one day, and somebody comes in going, you've been here for several weeks, and he's like, where's my daughter? Where is she? And it's like, she's in Paris. And I was like she said she wasn't going to Paris. I said they don't even speak English over there. Is his common joke for Paris, and then kind of turns around eventually and goes, who are you? And then turns around halfway through and just goes, and who am I? And you suddenly realize everything just pours out of him, and he just starts crying for his mum, and he wants his mum to take him home, and he feels like he's losing all his leaves. Is the kind of beautiful line there, just these final few minutes, and it is like you do kind of go, can he really have got the Oscar for it? And then you watch it and you go, yes, there's a reason why he won that award. And You know, there are some other things he's done where you go, this is Anthony Hopkins just playing Anthony Hopkins, and then he turns up in this, and you go, yes.
I would say that final sequence is probably the most devastating in all three of our films that we've kind of discussed.
Like, and there's some devastating sequences, but just this one of just, and I think it's because even it's quite funny because the two films he's won the award for, this and Hannibal Lecter, cannot be more opposite either. Like in terms of like, and I think this is one of Hopkins's really good things, that he can play maniacally evil in Lecter and all the Shakespearean villains, or he can play just kind.
I mean, what's funnier is obviously they're kind of polar opposites in terms of like the personality of the characters, but also polar opposites in terms of like screen time. It's like Hannibal Lecter, what is he on screen, about 15 minutes?
I think it's 16. It's the second shortest, I think, time to win the Oscar.
But this, he's in like literally every he's always on screen, isn't he? Is he in every scene?
I think he's in every scene, because it's from his viewpoint, and it's the film's just a really nice, small, intimate. You can tell most of it was probably on a soundstage, aside from one or two sections, because it doesn't need to be a real place. And if you've got the money, you can then construct the set and you can control everything.
Exactly. I mean that was a key aspect, wasn't it? That it had to be on soundstage because they changed the geography of the flat as he loses his grip on reality.
Yeah.
So things literally aren't in the same place as they were a few scenes ago. So it's his mindset. I mean, that combining of the two casts kind of alternating, I think it's just such a clever, ingenious kind of way of showing losing your grip.
And there's just subtle things, like there's a scene where he walks into the dining room and overhears Olivia Colman and Olivia Colman, who's his daughter, and her husband having a conversation about maybe we should move him into somewhere else, that so that you can have a life instead of looking after him 24/7. And he kind of walks in it, and it's kind of awkward, and then they sit down for dinner, and then he goes to clear the plates or get some more, and they have the same conversation. And you're going, so is this deja vu? Is he repeating it? Was this a prediction of what's before? Have I watched things in a different order? Because now you're watching it from the inside of the room, but it's exactly the same, so you're not sure. And there's just really clever things like that make it slightly more devastating, because you don't know what's going on either for a large part of it. And it's that confusion which kind of drags it in. And, for somebody that, I mean, I haven't lived with anybody with dementia, but I have lived with somebody who occasionally has memory issues. It doesn't hit home in some ways, and then other times it do, because you sit there and go, I've had to tell people who they are on occasion, and who lives down the hall. And so if I mean, as it becomes more of a thing now, I think dementia and these illnesses are becoming more and more common and well known. You don't just shove them up in the loft, essentially, or the attic, which is what they used to do. It kind of gets more and more devastating as it goes on. It really is a beautiful film, and I would say if you haven't seen it, even if you think you're the manliest man in the world, get a box of tissues just in case, because the final scene is an absolute soul crusher.
With my mom's dad, I took care of him alone for a whole day while he had dementia. And I feel very fortunate that I didn't run into anything other than, how are you related to my ex-wife? Was kind of but he was comfortable the whole time. But being able to be immersed into that point of view sounds fascinating. And I'm much more convinced to watch this than I am yours, Sam. Sorry.
The thing with it as well is I think what it works. I mean, Olivia Colman also got nominated for the Oscar as well, and she does a really good job as well. But I think she's not on it as much for us to properly get her. And she's one of about 3 people that could be his daughter, and she essentially got the nod because it was Olivia Colman, and a couple of years ago she won the Oscar, and it's also Olivia Colman, so
not disrespecting her work, but a bit, she's almost getting a bit like a Meryl Streep, she gets it for turning up now, I think.
I was going to say she turns up and doesn't put in a bad performance.
She's never anything less than excellent, but I think some years there are you could just take her off the ballot. Just
Yeah.
she wouldn't be missing out. I don't
Please
think.
put Helen Mirren for Fast 11, please.
I mean,
Hobbs and Shaw too.
In the nicest way to Olivia Colman, to me, she will always be from Hot Fuzz for me. Like that's where I know Olivia Colman from. I've been around the station.
Is that a Film4 film?
No, which one was.
Bummer.
And no, Hot Fuzz is Focus, I want to say.
I think so. Yeah.
Off the top of my head. Olivia Colman is great in this, but she kind of has the ability to turn up and be very good in most things now. And she got an Oscar, so she got top billing on the poster. And in a film like this, they were going to give her a nom. I'm not saying she didn't deserve it, but it was kind of almost a shoe-in, if that makes sense. I think what also makes it work, I think this film wouldn't work if you didn't like Anthony Hopkins' character. And he can be a grumpy so-and-so from now and then because he's 80.
He is infuriating often. Even when he's not having one of his moments, he's an infuriating man. And
but
that speaks to kind of again truth. It's like everyone's had like an old relative who's been like that, had those kind of those moments. But
but then you've also got him cracking the same joke every now and then.
Yeah.
You've got him busting out some tap dancing, which he didn't know he could do. And it's just like, do
you mean the character or Anthony Hopkins didn't know?
Both, probably both. The
I wish she'd been in Cats now.
So the character reckons he was a tap dancer at one point and does some tap dancing to prove it. And then, like 15 minutes later, Olivia Colman's like, "Yeah, you did some tap dancing." He's like, "I don't dance. I was an engineer. Like, what's going on?" That kind of thing. So there are bits which make him likable enough, even through his grumpy phases, that when the devastation hits right at the end, he was a real enough character that he wasn't completely perfect. He wasn't a complete arsehole. And it's only when you get a character that's round enough like that you have both sides, that when it completely hits and he is reduced to being essentially a 3-year-old in an 83-year-old man's body, having a complete breakdown, everything like that it was set up right at the beginning, and it has to be set up, otherwise it's not going to have the payoff. And it's beautifully written and beautifully done and very well directed as well. This was a directorial debut as well. Florian Zeller had done theatre before then, but I think he might have done a few bits of TV perhaps, but it was at least in terms of a feature film. And it's really nicely handled, because you do get the kind of more static moments, but then he'll move it when he needs to. It's not flashy, but it's also not kind of, we had about £3 for filming it, just set up some cameras and shoot, which can be the case for some lower budget films. It's a really nice balance, and it's just a really, really well made, well done film all around.
By the way, Joe really likes this because he wrote 349 words in the blurb review on The Father.
Yeah.
Were 300 of it about the Oscars?
I would say that is easily the smallest portion. That might be like 50 of the 349.
Good.
So I did the little and often maxim. I spread myself around between many different films, but just kept it brief to the point.
Yeah.
I have yet to check that out. I'm gonna quickly flick down to check it out. Okay.
I also wonder how.
Junk.
I wonder how effective this story is on stage versus in film. Because you can sort of create that effect, I guess, through changing the stage and talking about that one scene, redoing it twice. But it sounds something that's more effective through editing and camera work from talking about it.
I mean, I haven't obviously seen the stage performance. You can see how it came from a play to a feature film. It is one of those that was obviously adapted like that.
It'll be interesting with that extra added kind of sense of suspension of disbelief you get with stage stuff, how they'd kind of designate kind of what he's how his perception of things and what's actually happening,
Yeah.
or whether they just blend together. And yeah, be interesting to see how it's handled.
Because the film deliberately puts us in, if not his point of view, but in a very similar adjacent point of view, whereas in a theater you are watching everything happen in front of you. With the film, it has, not always, it doesn't always work, but it has the ability to bring you into a more subjective viewpoint, and that's part of the thing, that you experience everything going on with the character.
Yeah, and we've had plenty of films in the past, where from the point of view of a family member, who's seeing one of their loved ones, I forget who they are, but it's probably one of the first which does put you kind of in that headspace of someone suffering, and their kind of warped kind of perception of the world. So yeah.
And you can tell I like this film from the fact that it went to the final shot of the film, and I felt it doing, and I literally went, cut it here, don't do anything more. If you do anything more, I'm going to get upset with you, because you're trying to just throw stuff in. And it cut where I wanted it to. So I'm like, right, we're on the same wavelength. That's normally how I tell how well I'm going to like a film, when I think it should cut here and it does. The credits, I'm like, yes, you're correct.
Yes. So many films would be just leaps and bounds better, if you just took out one scene at the end, or just cut a few seconds earlier.
It has the confidence to go, this is where we need to end, and we're doing it.
I hate to bring us back to this, but Kieran, what do you think of the ending for The Substance then?
That is one of the things I thought about The Substance. I can understand why it ended where it did, but I also think it could have ended about 5 different times, and they all would have been a perfectly acceptable place to end. I'm not saying that you didn't gain anything by adding more stuff, but I'm saying that the story could have ended in other places, and it still would have been fine, if that makes sense.
Is that perhaps a meta commentary on the, you probably should have stopped using it here, or...
Don't double dip on your substance.
Real quick on Florian Zeller, it looks like almost everything he has written for the stage, and by the same token, film, starts with the. He has La Tour, La Ménage, The Mother, The Truth, The Father, The Lie, the Other Woman,
the Storm,
The Sun, and The Forest.
So I was hoping he'd complete his trilogy. He'd be going The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirits.
Oh, maybe that's his next play. And it appears he has also written novels. So, but he's gone away from the for that. He can use a few other words.
But I would highly recommend The Father. And it's not a long film either. It's about 90 minutes. So it's a nice dose. But have a box of tissues or a box of Kleenex for the US handy.
Yeah. Because we call everything an iPad, even if it's like a Samsung tablet. So
I mean, it is a thing in general, but the US does it an awful, I think, for stuff that doesn't need to, where they will have a particular brand of something, and then they will use that for the. I mean, we do it all the time anyway, so we call it a Hoover, whereas Hoover is a brand.
Or a biro.
Yeah, or Sellotape, which is a brand. Or even Ouija.
Yeah.
Because Ouija is still trademarked by the Parker Brothers.
Wait, do you say Ouija?
Yeah, Ouija.
Oh, not Ouija?
No.
Interesting.
Because one of the theories is it comes from we and ya. 2 words for yes. Even though there's also another theory, this is off the topic, but there's also another theory that one of the people that was using a Ouija board right at the beginning asked one of the spirits what it should be called, and they said Ouija. So essentially we don't know, but yeah. I don't know how we got to this. How did we get to Ouija boards?
I don't know.
Have a box of tissues handy for the father.
It wouldn't be an episode of Second Cut without a Kieran tangent, right?
I was going to say, yes, we should probably wrap it all up.
We're well under 80 minutes, so I'm just trying to make time here.
We don't have to go to the 2 hours. We can end it at 80 if we want to.
Yeah, we can come under the run times of both mine and Kieran's films. So we're not going to stretch to Paratex this run time this week.
Boo. All right. Well, that's it for this episode. Go check out our 100 unmissable Film4 movies list. It'll give you a lot of good movies to watch. We have a ton of these films reviewed too, and those will be linked in the what do you call it? The top of the description. Oh my God, the favorite review from Katie is much longer than Joe's review of The Father.
Yeah, I'm going to say probably the nearer you get to the end of the list, the more recent films, the more likely it is we've got a review of it. Especially in the last 10 years or so, probably 90% of them we've got.
Yeah. My reviews of, we'll plug stuff at the end, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well,
I reviewed
Which is about now.
I reviewed The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover, which seems like one of the most random ones off that list. So
it's a strange one, that, yeah.
Well, Sam alluded to this, but guys, where could people find you until next week?
You can find me at SSP Thinks Film and at the Film Magazine. So obviously contributes to this Film4 list. I've reviewed off the top of my head Titan, Poor Things. They're the two that spring to mind from the Brian and Charles. That's if you want like a really strange little British indie comedy about a guy and his cardboard robot. Go watch Brian and Charles. I've also recently done a 30th anniversary review of Tim Burton's Ed Wood, and as luck would have it, it was Ed Wood's birthday today. 100 years since he arrived and would go on to bring forth his unique brand of bad films on the world. So yeah, check that out too.
Nice. Kieran?
Hopefully you don't find me anywhere, but if you do, I'm K-Judgmental in the various places. I don't think I've had anything up in the past week. I'm doing a Jacob at the moment, trying to actually do other things and try and get a living. I'm now going through the list of Film4 films to seeing if I've actually reviewed any of them. I might not have done. Normally, if I do stuff like that, it's kind of tangential stuff. So stuff like One Life, which was BBC Films with Anthony Hopkins at the beginning of the year, but not Film4. I do see Film4 films, but normally somebody else has got to them already.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, Kieran only sees 4 films, so...
Yeah, and they're all horror.
Now, I've got a big question to ask now. Jacob, have you written anything recently?
Ooh, I have. You can find me at Jacob Film Guy, and you can read my review of Megalopolis. Sorry, mispronounced that. And also my Where to Start with Francis Ford Coppola, which I would start there before seeing Megalopolis.
Yeah. And watch those 3 films rather than
spoiler.
Oh
yeah.
No.
Spoiler: don't see Megalopolis. It's bad. It's real bad. Look, there are things that I like about it. There are moments that are entrancing. They are moments. That's the problem.
Essentially, what will happen is in about a year's time, when everyone's got it and like ripped it to pieces and can download it onto their laptops, they'll put individual scenes on YouTube. So what will happen is in a year's time, we'll make an article telling you which individual scenes to go find on YouTube for any artistic value, and you can ignore the rest of the film.
I mean, I've not seen it yet. I'm not going to see it at the cinema. I'll see it at some point. But guys, because you've both had the experience, are you glad it exists?
I'm indifferent.
I'm glad it exists for the point that I will then be able to use it as ammunition against certain people that go like, all these great directors or whatever, and they never make bad films. Like, yes, but they can also make Megalopolis. So just be wary about putting your gods on pedestals too much. And I can use it as a kind of cautionary tale rather than actually as a good film.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing: if you love Attack of the Clones and you love the end of Napoleon, you will love this movie. Otherwise, most of it's just really bad. And there's whole scenes where it's like, was he making a play and forgot he was making a movie? And then just because dialogue is lofty does not make it Shakespearean.
No.
That's not how
No.
it works.
Even if you're quoting Shakespeare. Anyway, I think
my
we should
God.
probably end this and have this.
Well,
we should save Megalopolis. We should do movie flops for another.
I
Maybe
also
at the end of the year we'll do a 3 movies we hated this year or something like that.
I also want to plug how Whiplash exposes the cost of perfection. I'm going to butcher your name, my fellow writer at TFM, Sabd Boyland. It's an Irish name. I cannot find a pronunciation online. It's Sadbh Boylan. But I don't know how to speak Irish because I am stupid. So if either of you have any idea how to say that properly, otherwise,
I'm looking at it going. I'm going to. Yeah, no.
I'm so sorry, friend. Please reach out and tell me how to say your name properly.
I was going to say, I dated a girl from Belfast for many years, and I still haven't got Irish names down, so sorry.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is it for this week. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.